The crystalline walls of the Zelani council chamber shook as another explosion echoed across their capital city. Ambassador Veltar pressed his translucent hands against the communication console, his body glowing with fear patterns that shifted from pale blue to deep purple. Through the tall windows he could see the dark shapes of Kithrak warships hanging in the orange sky like deadly storm clouds. "Send the message to all known systems," Veltar whispered to the communication officer beside him. His voice carried, the musical quality common to all Zelani, but now it trembled with desperation. "Someone must help us. Someone has to hear our call." The officer nodded, her own crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. She had never operated emergency broadcast systems before. None of them had. The Zelani people had known peace for over 3,000 years. War was something they read about in ancient histories, not something that happened to civilized beings. The broadcast signal went out across space, carrying their plea to every inhabited world within 50 light years. Veltar had written the message himself, trying to find words that might move alien hearts to action. To any who received this transmission, the message began. The Zelani Confederation faces total destruction. The Kithrak Empire has invaded our space without warning or provocation. Our people are dying. Our worlds are burning. We are a peaceful species with no military, no weapons, no experience in war. We offer everything we have to anyone willing to help us survive. Please, if there is mercy in the universe, do not let us perish alone. Far across the galaxy, on dozens of different worlds, alien species received the desperate call. Most deleted it immediately. The Kithrak Empire was known throughout this sector of space as ruthless and powerful. Only fools would challenge them to save a weak species like the Zelani. On the trade world of Nexus Station, a Bartonian merchant read the message and shook his forehead sadly. The Zelani made beautiful art, but art would not stop Kithrak battle fleets. In the hegemony of Kess, military commanders discussed the situation briefly before deciding their forces were needed elsewhere. The Zelani territories were too far away and too small to matter in galactic politics. The message reached 17 different civilizations. 16 of them chose to ignore it. But in a quiet corner of space aboard a small exploration vessel called the New Horizon, something different happened. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, drinking coffee from a metal cup and reviewing the day's stellar mapping data. He was a tall man in his 40s with graying hair and calm blue eyes. His uniform was practical rather than fancy, designed for long missions far from Earth. Around him, the bridge hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-run ship. "Captain," called Dr. Lisa Barnes from the communication station, "I'm picking up some kind of distress signal. It's in a language I don't recognize, but the translation software is working on it." Morrison turned in his chair. Lisa was the ship's xenobiologist, a woman in her 30s with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. She had joined the mission to study alien life forms, not to receive emergency calls from dying civilizations. "Put it through the speakers," Morrison said. The bridge fell silent as Veltar's translated voice filled the air. The words were simple, but the emotion behind them was unmistakable. Fear, desperation, the sound of people facing the end of everything they had ever known. "Jesus," whispered Commander Ryan Cole from the navigation station. Ryan was Morrison's second in command, a stocky man with black hair and serious dark eyes. He had served in Earth's military before joining the exploration service. "They're asking for help against an entire empire. Where are they?" Morrison asked. Lisa worked at her console, pulling up star charts and communication data. The signal originated from the Zelani system, about 4 days away at maximum speed. According to our databases, it's a peaceful confederation of 3 worlds, population around 2 billion. "And these Kithrak?" Morrison asked. "Unknown species," Lisa replied, still searching the databases. "No records of them in Earth's files. But based on the message, they seem to be some kind of aggressive empire." Chief Engineer Amy Walsh spoke up from her position at the engineering console. She was a small woman with red hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and hands that were always slightly dirty from working on the ship's systems. "Captain, We're a research vessel. We've got mining equipment, atmospheric processors, and science labs. We're not built for fighting wars." Morrison nodded slowly. The New Horizon carried a crew of 43 people, all civilians except for a small security team. They had powerful engines, good sensors, and equipment designed to study planets and asteroids. But weapons, armor, military shields, they had none of those things. "How far are we from the nearest Earth military base?" Morrison asked Ryan. Ryan checked his charts. 3 weeks at best speed. By the time we could get word back to Earth and send a proper military response, it would be over. The distress signal continued to play in the background. Veltar's voice repeated the same desperate plea in several different languages, hoping that someone, somewhere, would understand and care enough to help. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Ben Carter from the tactical station, "we're the only Earth ship in this sector. If we don't respond, no one will." Ben was young, maybe 28, with sandy hair and blue eyes. He had trained as a security officer, but spent most of his time cataloging the defensive systems of planets they surveyed. He understood better than most how helpless the Zelani must feel. Morrison stood up and walked to the main view screen. Outside, stars stretched in all directions, beautiful and cold. Somewhere out there, people were dying while their pleas for help echoed unanswered through space. "Amy," he said finally, "how long would it take to modify our equipment? Theoretical modifications for combat use." Amy frowned. "Sir, our mining lasers could probably damage a ship's hull if we boosted the power coupling. The atmospheric processors use some pretty nasty chemicals. And I suppose we could overload the fusion plant if we really needed to make a big explosion." She paused. "But Captain, we'd be going up against warships, real military vessels with armor and shields and weapons, designed to kill people. How many ships do they have?" Morrison asked Lisa. Lisa was monitoring communication intercepts from the Zelani system. "Hard to tell from this distance, but I'm reading at least 20 large vessels in orbit around their home world. Probably more throughout their system." 20 to 1 odds, Ryan said quietly. "Against military ships." Morrison looked around his bridge. These people had signed up to explore new worlds, not fight impossible battles against alien empires. He had no right to ask them to risk their lives. For strangers they had never met, but the distress signal kept playing. Veltar's voice filled the silence, carrying the desperation of an entire species facing extinction. "Options?" Morrison asked. "We could report back to Earth," Ryan suggested. "Let them handle it through proper diplomatic channels." "We could try to reach other alien governments," Lisa added. "Maybe find someone closer who could help. Or we could mind our own business," Amy said bluntly. "We're explorers, not soldiers." Morrison nodded. All reasonable suggestions, all the smart, safe, logical things to do. He thought about his daughter back on Earth just starting college, about his ex-wife, who still worried about him even though their marriage was over, about the crew members under his command, young, people with their whole lives ahead of them. Then he thought about 2 billion Zelani who would die if no one came to help them. "Set course for the Zelani system," Morrison said. "Maximum speed." The bridge erupted in surprised voices, but Morrison held up his hand for silence. "I know this isn't what any of us signed up for," he said. "But we're the only ones who can get there in time. We're going to help them." 4 days later, the New Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zelani system. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the main screen as sensors painted a picture of destruction and chaos. "My God," whispered Dr. Lisa Barnes, her fingers flying over the science console. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. Those are warships, lots of them." The screen showed the Zelani homeworld, a beautiful blue-green planet that reminded Morrison of Earth. But instead of peaceful orbital stations, it was surrounded by dark angular ships that looked like metal sharks. Even from this distance, they could see bright flashes as the alien vessels bombarded the surface. 23 Kithrak ships in orbit around the planet, reported Lieutenant Commander Ben Carter from Tactical. More scattered throughout the system. They're bombing cities, Captain. I'm reading massive destruction on the surface. Morrison felt his jaw clench. They were too late to prevent the invasion, but maybe not too late to save lives. Lisa, can you establish communication with the Zelani government? Working on it, sir. I'm scanning for their communication frequencies. Lisa adjusted her equipment, trying to filter through the interference from the battle. Got it. I'm receiving a response from someone calling himself Prime Counselor Zethara. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at an alien face. Morrison had seen pictures of Zelani in Earth's databases, but meeting one in person was different. Zethara looked like he was made of living crystal, his translucent skin glowing with soft blue light. His large eyes were the color of deep ocean, water, and when he spoke, his voice had a musical quality that the translation software struggled to reproduce. Unknown vessel, Zethara said, his image wavering as explosions shook his location. Identify yourself. Are you the military force we requested? Morrison stepped forward. Prime Counselor, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel New Horizon. We received your distress call. We're here to help. Zethara's glowing form brightened with what looked like hope, then dimmed with confusion. Earth? I am not familiar with this world. How many ships do you command, Captain Morrison? One ship, sir. This ship. The hope in Zethara's eyes faded completely. One ship? Captain, we face an entire battle fleet. One vessel, even a large one, cannot possibly stand against the Kithrak Empire. We understand the odds, Morrison replied, but we're the only ones who answered your call. We're going to do everything we can to help your people. Behind Zethara, they could hear other Zelani voices speaking in urgent tones. The Prime Counselor turned away for a moment, then faced the screen again. Captain Morrison, my advisors tell me that your ship appears to be a civilian research vessel. Is this correct? Morrison felt heat rise in his cheeks. Yes, sir. We're an exploration ship. Then why did you come here? Your people sent an unarmed science vessel against warships? Dr. Barnes stepped up beside Morrison. Prime Counselor, we came because it was the right thing to do. We couldn't ignore your call for help. Zethara stared at them for several long moments. Your species? What kind of world do you come from? What drives you to such actions? Lisa looked at Morrison, who nodded for her to answer. Earth is what we call a Class M planet. Breathable atmosphere, liquid water, diverse ecosystems. Your classification system is unfamiliar, Zethara said. What class do you consider our world? Based on our scans, Zelani Prime would be classified as Class L. Very safe, stable climate, low radiation, no major predators or geological hazards. The Prime Counselor's crystalline features showed confusion. If your world is similar to ours, why are your people so aggressive? Why do you risk yourselves for strangers? Morrison and Lisa exchanged glances. Sir, I think there might be a misunderstanding about Earth's classification. Lisa, show him our planetary data. The screen split, showing Zethara on one side and Earth on the other. Lisa began displaying information about humanity's homeworld. Earth has extreme weather systems, she explained. Hurricanes with winds over 200 kilometers per hour, tornadoes that can destroy entire cities. We have active volcanoes, massive earthquakes, and ice ages that last thousands of years. Zethara's glow shifted to what looked like alarm. But surely your people live in protected areas away from such dangers. No, sir, Morrison said. Humans have adapted to survive in all of Earth's environments. We live in deserts where the temperature reaches 60 degrees Celsius. We build cities next to active volcanoes. We have settlements in regions where the ground freezes solid for half the year. That is impossible, Zethara whispered. No civilized species could survive such conditions. Lisa continued the presentation. Earth is also home to predators that hunt in packs, venomous creatures that can kill with a single bite, and diseases that have shaped our evolution for millions of years. Our oceans have storms that create waves 30 meters high. The image showed Earth's wildlife, from great white sharks to grizzly bears to venomous snakes. Each creature made Zethara's glow dim further with what looked like fear. "Your world is a death world," Zethara said finally. "In our classification system, such planets are labeled Class 12, uninhabitable by intelligent life." "Class 12? Morrison asked. "The highest danger rating we have," Zethara explained. "We believed that no species could develop civilization on such worlds. Yet you say humans not only survive there but thrive." "It's the only world we've ever known," Morrison replied. "We don't consider it dangerous. It's just home." Commander Ryan Cole stepped forward from his navigation station. "Prime Counselor, what classification would you give to the Kithrak homeworld?" "The Kithrak come from a Class 3 world, harsh by our standards, with extreme seasons and dangerous storms. It is what made them so aggressive and warlike." Lisa checked her readings. "Sir, based on our scans, the Kithrak homeworld would barely qualify as Class F by Earth standards. It's actually quite mild." The Prime Counselor was quiet for a long time. Around him, other Zelani officials whispered among themselves, their crystalline forms flickering with rapid patterns of light. "Captain Morrison," Zethara said finally, "are you telling me that your people evolved on a world so dangerous that it would kill any of us within hours? Yet you still developed enough compassion to risk your lives for complete strangers?" Morrison thought about that. He had never considered Earth particularly dangerous. Growing up in Colorado, he had dealt with blizzards, mountain lions, and altitude sickness as normal parts of life. His brother was a storm chaser who drove into tornadoes for research. His sister lived in California, where earthquakes and wildfires were just things you prepared for. "I guess we never thought about it that way," he said. "Earth taught us to look out for each other. When someone's in trouble, you help them. It doesn't matter if they're strangers." "Your ship?" Zethara asked. "How is it armed? What weapons do you carry?" Chief Engineer Amy Walsh joined the group on screen. "We don't have weapons, sir. We have mining lasers, chemical processors, and industrial equipment. But Captain Morrison has asked us to modify our systems for combat use." "You plan to fight warships with mining equipment?" Amy shrugged. "It's what we've got to work with. On Earth, we learn to use whatever's available to solve problems." Another explosion shook Zethara's location, and the transmission flickered. Behind him, other Zelani were moving quickly, their glowing forms bright with panic. "Captain Morrison," Zethara said urgently, "the Kithrak are beginning their final assault on our capital city. If you truly mean to help us, it must be soon." Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. They had traveled 4 days to reach a hopeless battle, and now an entire species was depending on them. "Prime Counselor, we need a safe location where we can work without being detected. Somewhere we can modify our ship and plan our attack." "There is an asteroid field in the outer system," Zethara replied. "The Kithrak avoid it because the radiation and debris make navigation dangerous." Ryan Cole smiled grimly. "Sounds like home to us, sir. Then we'll be in touch soon," Morrison said. "Hold on, Prime Counselor. Help is coming." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the New Horizon in silence. Outside the viewports, they could see the flashes of battle around Zelani Prime. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "they're right about the odds. We're one civilian ship against an entire battle fleet." Morrison nodded. "Yes, we are. But we're also something they've never faced before. We're Deathworlders." The New Horizon drifted through the asteroid field like a ghost ship, hidden among chunks of rock and metal that glowed with dangerous radiation. Chief Engineer Amy Walsh crawled through maintenance tunnels that were never meant to be accessed during flight, her hands working quickly to reroute power cables. "Hand me that plasma conduit," she called to her assistant, Pete Garcia. Pete was barely out of engineering school, a young man with nervous energy and steady hands. Together, they were performing modifications that would make any sane engineer run screaming. "Amy, this is crazy," Pete whispered as he watched her connect mining laser assemblies directly to the ship's main power grid. "We're bypassing every safety system we have. Crazy is what we need right now," Amy replied, her red hair damp with sweat. "The Kithrak expect to fight civilized ships with proper safety margins. They're not expecting a bunch of humans willing to push everything past the breaking point. 3 levels above in the ship's converted cargo bay, Security Chief Maria Santos was working with navigator Tom Parker to create something that had never existed before. A human boarding party equipped for space combat. Maria was a former police officer from Chicago, a woman who understood that sometimes you had to fight with whatever was available. She watched Tom weld metal plates onto environment suits, turning them into makeshift armor. These won't stop direct laser hits, Tom warned. He was a quiet man from Minnesota, more comfortable with star charts than weapon systems. But like everyone on the ship, he was adapting to circumstances. They don't need to stop everything, Maria replied. They just need to keep us alive long enough to get close. Remember, we're not trying to win pretty. We're trying to win. Around them, other crew members worked on their own projects. Dr. Lisa Barnes was analyzing Kithrak ship designs downloaded from Zelani databases, looking for weaknesses. Medic Chris Hughes was preparing trauma kits designed to work in zero-gravity and hostile environments. Everyone had a job, and everyone understood that failure meant the death of 2 billion Zelani. On the bridge, Captain Morrison studied tactical displays with Commander Ryan Cole and Lieutenant Commander Ben Carter. The 3 men stood around a holographic projection of the Zelani system, watching red dots that represented enemy ships. The Kithrak are keeping their main fleet in orbit around Zelani Prime, Ben reported. They're using standard blockade formation, big ships staying together for mutual protection. They're being cautious, Ryan observed. Probably afraid of Zelani reinforcements or some kind of trap. Morrison nodded. Which means they're not expecting what we're about to give them. How many ships can we handle at once? Ben ran calculations on his console. With our modifications, maybe 2 or 3 enemy vessels if we get the jump on them. But Captain, there are 23 ships in that fleet. Then we don't fight 23 at once, Morrison replied. We pick them off 1 or 2 at a time, hit-and-run tactics. Sir, Ryan said, our ship isn't designed for this kind of maneuvering. The structural stress alone could tear us apart. Morrison smiled grimly. Ryan, you've lived through Colorado, blizzards and Rocky Mountain storms. This ship has systems built by people who deal with hurricanes and earthquakes as part of normal life. We're stronger than they think. Down in engineering, Amy was putting the finishing touches on their primary weapon system. She had taken the ship's main mining laser, designed to cut through asteroid rock, and connected it directly to the fusion reactor. The result was a beam weapon that would either destroy enemy ships or destroy the New Horizon. Possibly both. Power. Coupling is stable, she reported over the communication system. Barely. We get maybe 6 full power shots before something melts. Make them count, Morrison replied. Pete watched Amy work and shook his head. My engineering professors would have failed me for even thinking about this design. Your professors never had to fight a war with mining equipment, Amy said. Sometimes you have to break the rules to save lives. In the ship's laboratory, Lisa was working on a different kind of weapon. She had converted the atmospheric processing system, normally used to analyze planetary air samples, into a chemical warfare delivery system. The Kithrak breathe a nitrogen-oxygen mixture similar to what we use, she explained to Chris Hughes as they worked together. But their biology is different. These chemical compounds should be toxic to them while remaining safe for us. Chris, a former emergency room doctor from Detroit, understood the implications. Lisa, we're talking about using poison gas against living beings. They're committing genocide, Lisa replied quietly. Sometimes you have to fight monsters with monster tactics. Tom Parker's voice came over the ship's communication system. Captain, I've finished mapping the asteroid field. I found something interesting. Morrison made his way to the navigation station, where Tom was displaying a 3-dimensional map of the space around them. The asteroids formed a complex maze of rock and metal, all of it bathed in radiation from a nearby pulsar. See this path here? Tom pointed to a route through the asteroids that looked impossibly dangerous. It leads right to the edge of the system, close enough to strike the Kithrak outer perimeter. But the radiation levels are off the charts and the navigation is... He paused. Well, it's suicide for most species. But not for us. Morrison, said. Not for us, Tom agreed. I grew up in Minnesota, dodging ice storms and tornadoes. This is just weather in space. Ben Carter ran the route through his tactical computer. Captain, if we approach through that corridor, we could hit their scout ships before they even know we're coming. But one mistake and we'll be smeared across a dozen asteroids. Morrison looked at the route, following the twisting path through radiation and debris. It was the kind of approach that required split-second timing and absolute trust in your pilot's skills. The kind of flying that only someone from a death world would even consider. Tom, can you fly it? Tom Parker had grown up on a farm in Minnesota, where winter storms could kill you if you made a single mistake. He had learned to drive in blizzards where you couldn't see 10 feet ahead. This was just another kind of storm. Give me 2 hours to run practice simulations, he said. I can fly it. The next few hours passed in intense preparation. Amy finished installing their improvised weapons, systems that pushed every safety margin to the breaking point. Maria completed training for the boarding parties, teaching crew members how to fight in spacesuits and zero gravity. Lisa prepared chemical weapons that would have been banned on Earth but were necessary here. Finally, Morrison called everyone together in the main cargo bay. The entire crew of 43 people gathered around their captain, their faces showing determination mixed with fear. They all knew what they were about to attempt. In 30 minutes, we're going to attack the Kithrak Empire, Morrison began. We're going to use weapons that shouldn't exist, fly through space that should kill us, and fight battles we can't win. By every reasonable standard, what we're about to do is impossible. He looked around at his crew, seeing engineers who had become weapons designers, scientists who had become warriors, and explorers who had become soldiers. But we're not reasonable people, Morrison continued. We're from Earth. We're from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years, and we survived. We learned to adapt, to fight, to never give up even when the odds are impossible. Amy spoke up from the back. Captain, are we really going to win this? Morrison was quiet for a moment. I don't know if we can defeat the entire Kithrak fleet, but I know we can hurt them. I know we can make them pay for every Zelani life they've taken. And I know that when this is over, they'll never forget the day they met Deathworlders. The crew dispersed to their stations. Tom Parker began the approach, through the asteroid field, flying a path that would have terrified pilots from any other world. Amy powered up weapons that existed only because humans were willing to break every safety rule ever written. As the New Horizon moved through the deadly maze toward their first target, Morrison realized something important. The Kithrak Empire had spent decades conquering peaceful species who fought wars according to civilized rules. They had never faced anyone from a death world before. The first attack came without warning. The New Horizon burst from the asteroid field like a predator emerging from tall grass, its modified mining laser cutting through the hull of a Kithrak scout ship before the aliens even knew they were under attack. Direct hit, reported Ben Carter from Tactical, his voice tight with excitement. Their shields didn't even register our approach through that radiation field. Tom Parker was already spinning the ship away from return fire, using the asteroids as cover in ways that made the Kithrak weapons miss by hundreds of meters. They're trying to target us, but they can't track through this debris field. Captain Morrison watched the tactical display as the crippled Kithrak ship drifted helplessly, its crew probably wondering what kind of suicidal maniacs would fly through a radiation storm to launch an attack. 1 down, 22 to go. The victory was small, but word of it spread quickly through Kithrak communication channels. Within hours, every ship in their fleet had heard about the mysterious vessel that attacked from the deadly asteroid field and vanished like a ghost. 3 days later, the psychological impact became clear when the New Horizon intercepted Kithrak military communications. Dr. Lisa Barnes translated the alien transmissions, her face growing more amazed with each message. Captain, listen to this, she said, playing back an intercepted signal. It's from the Kithrak fleet commander to his ship captains. The translation software converted the alien words into something human ears could understand. The Kithrak commander's voice carried notes of confusion and growing fear. All vessels maintain maximum alert status. The enemy vessel appears to be crewed by some kind of death-worshipping species. They fly through radiation that should kill any living thing. Their weapons operate beyond safe power levels. Their attack patterns show no regard for their own survival. Morrison exchanged glances with Ryan Cole. Death-worshipping species? Lisa continued playing the transmission. Intelligence. Reports suggest these beings come from a world so hostile that it has shaped them into perfect killers. They fight like creatures that have no fear of death because death has always surrounded them. Amy Walsh's voice came over the ship's communication system from engineering. Captain, they're not wrong about the power levels. I'm running everything, 50% above normal capacity. Any other ship would have exploded by now. But we're not any other ship, Morrison replied. We're built by people who live on a world that tries to kill them every day. The psychological warfare was working better than they had hoped. The Kithrak Empire had built its reputation on overwhelming weaker species through fear and superior numbers. But now they were the ones afraid, facing an enemy that seemed to embrace danger rather than avoid it. The second engagement came when the New Horizon attacked a Kithrak supply convoy near the outer planets. This time, Morrison decided to test their boarding capabilities. Maria, you're on, he called to Security Chief Maria Santos. Maria led a team of 12 volunteers through the ship's modified airlocks, wearing the improvised armor that Tom Parker had welded together. The environment suits looked like something from a post-apocalyptic nightmare, covered in metal plates and carrying weapons that had been assembled from spare parts. The boarding action lasted less than 10 minutes. The Kithrak crew, expecting civilized combat with proper rules and surrender protocols, found themselves fighting humans who moved through zero gravity, like they were born in space, and used tactics that seemed completely insane. Chris Hughes, the ship's medic, fought alongside Maria despite having no combat training. When a Kithrak warrior cornered him in a narrow corridor, Chris used a medical laser as a weapon, cutting through the alien's armor with surgical precision. These creatures fight like demons, one surviving Kithrak reported to his fleet commander. They use medical equipment as weapons. They move through our ships like they have no fear of decompression or radiation. What kind of species produces such beings? Word of the human boarding tactics spread through the Kithrak fleet even faster than news of their ship modifications. Alien crews began reporting stress and morale problems as they imagined the nightmare of facing human boarding parties. The third engagement proved even more devastating to Kithrak confidence. The New Horizon had located a damaged Kithrak warship trying to make repairs in the shadow of Zelani Prime's largest moon. Instead of a quick hit-and-run attack, Morrison decided to test Lisa's chemical weapons. Deploy the atmospheric processors, he ordered. Lisa Barnes watched her instruments as invisible clouds of toxic gas spread through the enemy ship's ventilation systems. The chemicals she had designed were harmless to humans but deadly to Kithrak biology. It's working, she reported. Their life signs are dropping throughout the ship. Within an hour, the Kithrak warship was drifting silent and empty, its crew dead from poison that they never saw coming. The attack left no evidence of how the humans had killed everyone on board, adding another layer of terror to their growing reputation. More human ships began arriving in the system as Morrison's calls for reinforcement reached other exploration vessels. The cargo hauler Iron Will, commanded by Captain Beth Turner, arrived first. Beth was a woman from Alaska who had spent her life dealing with conditions that would kill most people. Jake, she called over the communication channel. Heard you. We're having a party out here. Mind if we join? The Iron Will was even less suited for combat than the New Horizon, but Beth's crew attacked the problem with typical human creativity. They loaded their cargo holds with asteroids and used their ship as a massive shotgun, firing chunks of rock at Kithrak vessels at incredible speeds. It's not elegant, Beth explained during a strategy meeting, but rocks hurt when they hit you, fast enough. The survey vessel Deep Explorer arrived next, commanded by Captain Alex Rodriguez. Alex was from Florida, where hurricanes and alligators were just part of normal life. His ship specialized in planetary surveys, but the crew quickly adapted their drilling equipment for military use. We've got tunnel boring machines, Alex reported. Figured we could use them to drill right through enemy hulls. Each new human Ship brought different capabilities and different approaches to the impossible task of fighting a superior enemy, but they all shared the same Deathworld mentality. When faced with an impossible situation, you adapted and found a way to win. The Kithrak fleet commander, War Chief Thax, found himself dealing with problems he had never encountered in decades of conquest. His crews were reporting mysterious equipment failures, impossible attack patterns, and enemy tactics that seemed designed by madmen. "They ram our ships with cargo vessels," he complained to his staff officers. "They use mining equipment as weapons. They fight in conditions that should kill them instantly. What manner of beings are these?" His intelligence officer, a nervous creature named Vash, presented the latest reports. "War Chief, our scouts have identified their homeworld. The planet they call Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world in our databases." "Impossible," Thax replied. "No intelligent species can evolve on a Class 12 world." "The evidence suggests otherwise," Vash continued. "Their planet has extreme weather, massive predators, and natural disasters that would destroy any civilized world. These beings have been shaped by millions of years of constant danger." Thax studied the reports, reading descriptions of hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and creatures that existed only to kill other creatures. The idea that intelligent beings could not only survive such a world but thrive on it was beyond his understanding. "War Chief," another officer interrupted, "we're receiving reports of additional human ships throughout the system. They're coordinating attacks against our outer perimeter." Thax looked at the tactical displays, watching as red dots representing his ships disappeared one by one. The humans were picking apart his fleet using tactics that no civilized species would even consider. For the first time in his military career, War Chief Thax began to wonder if the Kithrak Empire had finally met an enemy they could not defeat. The bridge of the New Horizon. Captain Morrison studied the same tactical displays from the other side. The human ships were scattered throughout the system, each one fighting its own small war against impossible odds. "Status report," he called. Ben Carter checked his readings. 7 Kithrak ships destroyed or disabled, 16 still operational. "But Captain, our modifications are starting to fail. Amy says we can't keep pushing the systems this hard much longer." Morrison nodded. They had bought time and hurt the enemy, but the Kithrak still had overwhelming numbers. The real battle was yet to come. The final battle began when the Kithrak fleet moved to destroy the human ships once and for all. War Chief Thax had gathered his remaining 16 warships into a tight formation, determined to end what he called the Deathworlder problem through overwhelming force. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the enemy fleet approach through the asteroid field. Around him, his crew worked at stations that sparked and smoked from days of operating beyond safe limits. Amy Walsh had warned him that their ship could explode at any moment, but they had come too far to stop now. "All human ships, this is Morrison," he broadcast on the emergency frequency. "The Kithrak are making their final push. This is our chance to end this." Captain Beth Turner's voice crackled back from the iron will. "Copy that, Jake. My cargo holds are loaded with the biggest rocks we could find. Time to play some space baseball." From the Deep Explorer, Captain Alex Rodriguez added his own confirmation. "Our drilling equipment is ready. Let's show these aliens what Florida engineering looks like." The battle plan was insane by any reasonable standard. The human ships would use the asteroid field as cover, drawing the Kithrak fleet into a maze of radiation and debris where their superior numbers meant nothing. It was the kind of fighting that only beings from a death world would even consider. Tom Parker guided the New Horizon through passages between asteroids that were barely wider than the ship itself, flying by instinct and experience gained from years of navigating Earth's worst weather. Behind them, Kithrak ships struggled to follow, their pilots terrified by the radiation levels and chaotic debris. "Contact," Ben Carter reported as the first enemy ship appeared on their sensors. "Kithrak, heavy cruiser, coming through the debris field about 2 kilometers behind us." "Amy, give me everything the laser has left," Morrison ordered. In engineering, Amy Walsh pushed the mining laser to maximum power one final time. The weapon system, never designed for combat, screamed in protest as energy levels climbed far beyond Safe parameters. Captain, this is it. After this shot, we're going to lose main power. Make it count. The modified mining laser fired with the power of a small star, cutting through the Kithrak cruiser's armor like it was made of paper. The enemy ship broke apart in a brilliant explosion that lit up the asteroid field. But the effort finally broke their overworked systems. The New Horizons lights flickered as power failed throughout the ship. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows as the crew worked frantically to restore basic functions. We're dead in space, Amy reported. Give me 10 minutes and I can get us moving again, but we have no weapons. Through the static-filled communications system, they could hear other human ships reporting similar problems. The Iron Will had exhausted its cargo of improvised ammunition. The Deep Explorer's drilling equipment had overheated after boring through 3 enemy hulls. One by one, the human vessels were falling silent as their jury-rigged modifications failed. War Chief Thack saw the human ships going dark and felt a surge of satisfaction. Finally, he told his remaining officers, the Deathworlders have pushed their primitive technology too far. All ships move in for the kill, but as the Kithrak fleet advanced through the asteroid field, they discovered that damaged human ships were still dangerous. Maria Santos led boarding parties from the powerless New Horizon, using small shuttlecraft to reach enemy vessels. Her teams moved through space like they were born to it, attacking Kithrak ships from directions the aliens never expected. Chris Hughes, the medic-turned-warrior, found himself fighting inside a Kithrak command ship with nothing but a portable medical scanner in his bare hands. When cornered by 3 alien soldiers, he used his knowledge of biology to disable them with pressure point attacks that worked on Kithrak anatomy. These creatures fight even when they are dying, one Kithrak officer reported in panic. Their ship has no power, but they still attack us. The turning point came when Captain Beth Turner made a decision that shocked even her fellow humans. With the Iron Will's systems failing and Kithrak ships closing in, she aimed her cargo hauler directly at the enemy flagship. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's communication system. Strap in and prepare for impact. We're going to ram them. The Iron Will accelerated toward the Kithrak flagship at maximum speed. The enemy ship tried to change course, but the massive cargo vessel struck it amidships with the force of an asteroid impact. Both ships exploded in a fireball that could be seen from Zelani Prime. The destruction of their flagship sent shockwaves through the remaining Kithrak fleet. War Chief Thax was dead, along with most of his senior officers. The surviving ships found themselves leaderless and surrounded by human vessels that refused to die, even when their own ships were falling apart. All Kithrak vessels, this is Subcommander Vec, came a transmission from the surviving enemy ships. We are withdrawing from this system immediately. Captain Morrison, working by emergency lighting on a ship that was more wreckage than vessel, managed to respond. Sub-Commander, you are ordered to surrender your remaining ships and face trial for war crimes against the Zelani people. Never, Vec replied. But we will leave this cursed system and never return. Your species, you fight like the void itself. The Kithrak Empire wants no part of such enemies. The remaining 11 Kithrak ships fled toward deep space, broadcasting warnings to their empire about the Deathworlders who had destroyed their fleet. The message would spread throughout Kithrak space, ensuring that they would never again underestimate beings from hostile worlds. In the aftermath, the human ships drifted among the asteroids, most of them barely functional. Rescue ships from Earth were still weeks away, but the immediate threat was over. The Zelani were safe. Prime Counselor Zethara's face appeared on the New Horizons' flickering communication screen, his crystalline features glowing with emotions that the translation software struggled to interpret. Captain Morrison, he said, my people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You came when no one else would answer our call. You fought when victory was impossible. You gave everything to save strangers you had never met. Morrison, exhausted and covered in soot from the failing ship systems, managed a tired smile. Prime Counselor, we did what anyone would do. No, Zethara replied firmly. What you did, only Deathworlders could do. Your species fights with a courage that defies logic. You use technology in ways that should be impossible. You protect others at the cost of your own lives. Dr. Lisa Barnes, monitoring the ship's damaged sensors, reported new contacts entering the system. Captain, I'm reading multiple ships arriving from Zelani space. Looks like their rescue fleet. Through the viewport, they could see dozens of Zelani vessels approaching, their crystalline hulls glowing with peaceful light. The aliens had organized their entire remaining fleet to help repair the human ships and evacuate wounded crew members. As Zelani engineers worked alongside humans to restore basic life support, both species learned from each other. The aliens marveled at human technology that operated far beyond safe parameters, while the humans appreciated Zelani systems designed for efficiency and harmony. Captain Morrison, Zethara said during one of their repair conferences, the Zelani Confederation would like to form a permanent alliance with Earth. We offer you our friendship, our technology, and our promise to help protect other peaceful species. Morrison looked around at his crew, seeing engineers covered in grease, medics treating wounded aliens and humans alike, and security officers teaching Zelani crews basic defensive tactics. Earth's first contact with galactic civilization had been through war, but it was ending with friendship. Prime Counselor, he replied, I think Earth would like that very much. 3 weeks later, when the first official Earth diplomatic mission arrived in Zelani space, they found a small monument floating in the asteroid field where the battle had been fought. It was built from pieces of destroyed ships, both human and Kithrak, and it carried a simple message in multiple languages. Here, beings from a death world proved that the most dangerous planets sometimes produce the most protective people. Captain Morrison submitted his final report to Earth Command from the rebuilt New Horizon. In it, he wrote about courage that came from surviving impossible conditions, about friendship forged in battle, and about humanity's new role as protectors in a vast galaxy. The report ended with a simple observation that would shape Earth's future among the stars. We came from a world that tried to kill us every day. That made us perfect for saving others.